Hello YouTube, welcome to the second part of the pad break timer video. If you haven't seen part one, I'm sort of assuming you have here. In this video, we're going to talk about like second and third order knock-on effects in regards to what exactly like breaking the pad does and like maybe, things that I am trying to point out that are considerations in regards to how you're going to break pad, if you want to break pad, and sort of scenarios like that where it makes like different things viable or it makes certain things not viable, right? Um, so to start, I really want to talk about I think the most important thing, which is the Altaria spawns. Um, I've sort of already talked about um, like the nuance in regards to like, oh, you're gonna get 3 NDDs top, 2 NDDs bot, right? So we're assuming that you're gonna break bot pad to start. If you break bot pad to start, how Altaria spawns work is the location, and this is again my understanding, the location is stored in whatever like memory the server has, as to whenever all of the Altarias die. So if you were to kill all the Altarias and then break the pad, the next Altaria spawn should be in the neutral spawn. However, if you were to break pad and then kill all the Altarias are going to spawn around here, approximately here. Again, consideration because, in this math, I really only factor in DDs. It depends on whether you think you can kill the Altarias or not. Similarly, when we're talking about, things that are important when considering what breaking a pad does, right? People will often talk about like, oh, well, if I break pad, I have easier access to their jungle, or like, I've seen people say this. I don't think it's true, which I'll sort of get into. Like you need to break pad to get into the jungle and the invades, right? I think this is sort of bogus. I know it's really propagated right now because Fennel is a very good team. They're the world champs. Their main strat is to break pad, invade jungle, do mass takeovers, and then steal all the XP. Afterwards, just sort of denying any sort of farm. The only issue that I have with this is that when we're talking about like the effects of breaking a pad, unlike League of Legends, where like even then the argument doesn't make sense of like having a middle turret control area, but that doesn't because you can still walk into the jungle. Like there's nothing stopping you from walking into the jungle. And this is the weirdest part about this because people will just like watch level 1 invades, call it good, but apparently you need to break pad to invade if it's like a level 4 plus. Um but yeah, like in this scenario, there's no speed flux zone, it ends like right there, that'll stop you from invading, and like invading is insanely easy. And if they retreat to pad anyways, it's totally fine because you have alternative methods of escape that don't require you to go in that certain direction. So I think that the argument that I've seen against like, oh, well, you need to break pad to invade jungle is just not true. Alternative knock-on effects of pads though, breaking, again, you're gonna get the benefit of not having the speed flux zone in this area. I don't think this is a real benefit. I think this is a fake benefit, to be honest. I'm not trying to sell you something that is snake oil here. So again, you talk 5 minutes jump pad. The speed zone benefit here, I don't think really matters in that scenario. It really only matters if you're able to break tier 2 for whatever reason, and even then you can still jump out to tier 2. Because I think that like the amount of time that it takes to rotate between like here and here is basically negligible in terms of long-term knock-on effects for a game. The only thing that would make sense is if it's like a determining factor in when they get like a certain Reggie. But even then, if they can make it to tier 2, they'll probably make it to the fight. And if they can't make it to tier 2 or to the fight in time, they were probably going to be late anyways. So I think that the speed zone doesn't really change much. That said, I think it still is a slight factor to consider just due to the increased rotation speeds, but given how low the recall timers are, I don't think it actually changes much post 5 minutes, which is when you should be breaking the pad anyways. And I think that like you're not really going to be trying to break it super hard, and I think that you can't leverage the speed flux zone being down pre 6, which is where you're really trying to, make a pad push. Um, Past that. when do I think like breaking pad would be optimal? I'm gonna first of all, I think it's a niche scenario, but I think a lot of comps that are hyper aggressive should be breaking top pad because the end goal should be into pushing tier two. I think that's the only way that makes breaking top pad or bot pad for that matter worth it, is if you can recoup some of the possible XP loss by breaking tier two, which allows you a much easier way to steal the Indeedis that are here and here. Or no, that's wrong. That's the wrong spawns. Here, here, and then here, I think. Yeah. So like I think that if you're going to break tier one, it's kind of in my eyes to be like a requisite. I think you kind of need to break tier two to actually get the value benefit from breaking tier one. And I think that tier two is a lot more important for control because just being able to jump pad out into the tier two, I think has a lot of knock-on ramifications for whether it's actually capable. And so that sort of to me also says if you're going to do this, you sort of need to take it before 5. But that's also inherently risky because taking one pad before 5 I think is relatively tough unless you're very far ahead. I think taking tier 2 is very hard as well unless you get the Alecki. Which is why I'm sort of saying I think that if you're doing this, you have to play the risk of breaking the top side pad, which is inherently riskier just due to the fact that it spawns an extra Indeedee, which is an extra 300 HP every or 300 XP every rotation. And so you kind of need the Alecki to get in there. But again, the Alecki is sort of a risk because it's more of an XP neutral mon than an XP gain mon unless you're actually getting the score in. Furthermore, this should hopefully be the last point, I think. I think that when you're considering the like jungle, right? Like if you're worried about pad break jungle invades, I hate to loop back to this guy. I should have talked about it earlier. I think it's also very counterable, even if you don't have tier one, which is the other thing that I'm like. The other reason that I don't like breaking the tier one is because I think that it doesn't really like stop you from countering the invades, which is the answer is to just group as 3 or 4, play a 1-3-1 or a 4-1. And then just like you're gonna have to give a neutral, but you have to just play for your respawn timers and then fight on the respawn timers because it's a little bit better for you if they have to come into you unless they're already in your jungle. And if they're already in your jungle, then you can kind of group as 5 and attempt to force them out, take a pick. Um, Especially if the enemy is playing like a pretty standard, I think 1-3-1 split, you know, where they have like the 3 rotating top and then they rotate bot afterwards. You know, like if you do that, you can I think pretty easily group as like 4 or 5 in this area or this area, and then that will allow you to take a fight that's good for you as somebody tries to rotate down. Obviously, risk to this is if they choose to rotate safe, which is a little bit longer, but obviously a lot safer. You know, you can't really do anything about that because if you're aggressing out here, you're opening yourself up to a lot of risk from like a crunch from top side or a crunch from bot side if you're ganking towards the bot. So that is sort of like the risk inherently associated with that. But I think that it's relatively easy to clear out your own jungle as long as you're not super far behind. Anyways, if anyone has any further questions, feel free to let me know in the comments and I will hopefully respond.